So Mars, during that time, when you think about what Russell Westbrook was doing for that Oklahoma City team as a transition guard, as a scorer, getting to the rim, getting downhill, involving KD in the game, and learning how to involve KD in the game more, you think James Harden would have been better at that if they would have given him the ball as opposed to Russell Westbrook?
For sure, better than Russell, but I just think James Harden was just better. I like.
So as a player, let's just take the lead guard off the table for a second. Like, when I'm not giving him the ball, we're just talking about strictly basketball players in 2012. Right? We're talking 2012, and that team was in the NBA Finals. And I ain't talking about just the NBA Finals. We're talking about 2012. I'm looking at Russell Westbrook and I'm looking at James Harden as basketball players. James Harden is a better basketball player than Russell Westbrook.
Yes.
Based on?
I think James Harden was a much better scorer, much better shot creator, much better ball handler. I also think he was a better passer. And this is what I mean when I say people have to go back and watch, because they're not going to like what I'm about to say. I think James Harden was a better defender than Russell Westbrook too. But people, you're going to have to go back and watch some 2012 OKC, because they were using James Harden like he was a perimeter stopper. I swear to God they were. Like, I'm not saying he was. I'm just saying they were using him as a point of attack defender. So, I think James Harden was a better defender, better scorer, better ball handler, better passer, better shooter, better off the ball. Like, I just think he was better. I just think he played less and had a smaller role, but I think he was better. So,
I mean, people see a player in a different situation and they suddenly think that that player got 10 times better. Do we remember James Harden's first game in Houston?
Wasn't he like 25 and 8 or some nonsense like that?
No,
he had like 37 and 12, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it was.
I'm talking about just that season. I ain't talking about the. I apologize, Ben. I'm talking about that season. I think he was like 25 and 8. But that first game, he was like 37 and 11. Some goofy something.
Yeah, and like I mean that's before these numbers became commonplace.
37 and 12. I was exactly right. 37 and 12.
Right.
Like now, when we see someone say 37 and 12, we're like, oh, that's a really, really good night. Back then, 37 and 12 was like, that's an MVP caliber night, you know. So
he followed that up with 45, like the next game.
Exactly. So it didn't happen like that. You know what I mean? Like that was there. It was all there. Team context, right? Like people looking at someone like Jalen Williams right now. If you give Jalen Williams, OKC Jalen Williams, his own club, I guarantee you he's a 25 point per game scorer. Guaranteed.
I
you know,
argue that.
But people don't look at him like a 25 point per game scorer because his role is different on that team, right? And I'm not saying I'm not even putting him in the conversation with James Harden because the Harden talent was so apparent. But yes, I do believe that the OKC Thunder would have been much better off just paying James Harden that extra $4 million.
Well, here's the problem with that. They ended up saving $30 million going off of him. Now, remember, Penn, we're talking about
first who
ended up losing championships
for Kendrick Perkins.
They ended up picking Ibaka over him, but this was definitely a money thing more than anything. They ended up saving $30 million, which, by the way, at that point, they had just moved to Oklahoma City like 5 years ago. They were the 41st market in the NBA at that time. And this isn't what the media is today. This isn't what the NBA is today, where viewership, even though viewership has dwindled a little bit, and I think that's largely due to shooting the long ball and people kind of turning the TV off to that. But back then, Oklahoma City was not favorable in terms of the NBA. People didn't really care much about Oklahoma City, not necessarily Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook, but Oklahoma City. And to pay James Harden what they paid him or what they were offering to pay him, and instead of moving off of him, I mean, they ended up saving $30 million, and that's a huge business move for them, especially for a small market like that. So I do
imagine how much the franchise would be worth if they had 3 rings.
Do they keep those 3 guys together though? Because again, do we move Russ to the 2? What are we doing with this crew? Do we move Russ to the 2, which is his natural position, by the way? Keep James Harden at the 1 and put KD at the 3?
Wait a second.
I don't know, but actually, they end up getting Billy Donovan anyway, so they wouldn't have won nothing.
Wait a second. What is the upside on value for a market like OKC? To be completely clear, OKC is one of the smallest markets in the United States. Like there are probably 12 markets that don't have teams that are bigger markets than OKC. It's a really small market.
In 2009, I went there. I was there. It was nothing in Oklahoma City. Nothing.
I've been to Oklahoma City a bunch of times in the past like 4 or 5 years. It's not amazing, but
it's kind of like when the Nets were in East Rutherford, right? Like I mean, and that was a much bigger market than OKC, but that was still considered somewhat small market. There has to be like when when the Golden State Warriors relocated from Oakland to San Francisco. That's a very different like demographic, how much you can charge, all the the amenities, the infrastructure,
Well, I
airport.
mean, they got there's some money out there, you know what I'm saying, as far as old money and all that, but I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure how much the market could grow. I'm just saying like it would be much big. Like as far as the basketball, I'm not saying the city would grow, the city would blow up. I'm not saying that, but as far as basketball,
Right.
winning a couple championships definitely changes your franchise.
Well,
And let's not act like they weren't gaining a lot of national fans, like young fans all over the country were going to. That's Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, James Harden, a lot of jerseys and stuff. So not just in OKC, but they had a fan base outside of Oklahoma City. I mean, they were like a lot of, especially younger fans that would be, like our age today or maybe younger, a little older, whatever. But that's a big deal though. You know what I'm saying? Like I think obviously I hear what you're saying, Chill. Saving $30 million is amazing, especially for a small market team. But I think scared money don't make none. So
Sure.
This is an exact example of scared money not making $1.
Well, they then turned around really quick, Pen. They did turn around in 20 when they got Carmelo Anthony, they got Paul George. They had the highest payroll in the league, and that was a disaster. So, I mean, it's a double-edged sword. So if you're a small market, you got to be very careful how you spend your money.
But Chill, that's different though. That's different. Melo wasn't Melo no more. You know what I'm saying? That was a completely different situation. These were three youngsters. Like, Kevin Durant was the oldest. So Russ, who's oldest? Kevin Durant.
Yeah,
And at
KD.
that point, what was he? At that point, how old was KD?
23,
24.
They didn't have anybody older than 23 on that.
Yeah, come on. Like that's way different. If you spend that money on them as opposed to spending that money on Russ, Paul George, and that Carmelo Anthony, that's way different. Like that's an investment in them. I don't know what that was.
That was just trying to keep up with the Joneses at that point. This is what was going on, in terms of the super team logic. We got Carmelo Anthony, we got Paul George, we already got Russ in the fold. If we get these two guys, and it's obvious that you got to spend some money in order to win. So this is what we're going to do. And that's what these other teams have done, and this is what we're going to do. And it turned out to be a disaster. And if you're a small market team, you got to be very conscious of that sort of stuff, off the strength that it could set you back years if you don't. And prime example would be the Oklahoma City Thunder. Okay, Penn, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I think when you're talking about valuation, I understand what Ox is saying about, your brand, like OKC, the jersey, OKC, what it means to other people. But at the end of the day, when you want to sell the team, the valuation of the team, whoever's going to buy it is still going to, they're going to be buying that team in Oklahoma City. And there is an upper limit to that. So if you want to say Joe Lacob and all these people, they spent billions of dollars or hundreds of millions of dollars in luxury tax payments, it's because the investment could exponentially grow from a $2 billion franchise to a $7 billion franchise. I don't think OKC can do everything right for the next 8 years. I don't think they're ever going to be worth, unless inflation and such dictates it. They're going to be worth what the Warriors be worth. So the scale,
off the strength of the location.
It scales according to where you start, right? Like, so the San Antonio Spurs won a ton of championships, right? They won 5 championships. The Spurs stand for something, right? The Spurs stand for winning. The Spurs stand for greatness. The Spurs stand for ball movement. The Spurs the Spurs are not one of the 10 most valuable franchises in the league per my estimate, right? Because the market is still San Antonio. Whereas, had Houston done the same thing that San Antonio did, because Houston is a bigger city and it is a bigger market, it would go up more. And the two, and it's almost like the haves and have-nots in a lot of ways, because the Houston Rockets won 2 championships in the 90s, and I do believe that those 2 championships elevated value more, branding more, than the San Antonio Spurs 5. You could say it's because the San Antonio Spurs were boring, maybe. You could say it's because Tim Duncan wasn't marketable. Maybe you could say it's because they were 2 Euro and two. Maybe if they had a Vince Carter or a Kobe Bryant or a Michael Jordan, it would have changed things a little bit. But yeah, and I mean, I'm just saying that as a Raptor fan, looking at a big market like Toronto, not quite as big as LA, New York, but still a very huge market here. The championship exploded the value of this franchise.
Right. I get what you. That's a fair point too, and I understand, but we also got to remember too. So I don't understand. I don't know who's the owners and what they do. The owners in OKC, or like where they come from, what type of money they got, how they made their money, or how they make their money. But there still are a lot of owners in professional sports and all professional sports that aren't really in professional sports for money. You know what I'm saying? So there's also that too.
Sure.
Yeah, you know what I'm saying. So, and I don't know the situation. Okay, see, I'm just throwing it out there. Maybe their goal isn't to,
They're cheap.
triple up.
They've been cheap all the
Yeah.
way through. And you know, we can talk about the assets that they have accumulated, the draft picks.
They
Yo,
got a bunch of them.
they got a bunch of draft picks. You know what draft picks are? They're the cheapest asset in the NBA.
Especially if you cash them in. Especially if you cash them in for legit players. Yes.
Right.
OKC's business model should be studied because they have basically, I don't want to say they're circumventing the cap, but basically what fits under your
You can
cap
say that, Penn, because that's exactly what they're doing.
in a very 4D chess way, they are. Because when you look at it, what counts on your cap sheet? Players.
Yes.
Players' salaries expired, players waived, players bought out, etc. That's all that counts. So what counts against your luxury tax bill is the players on your salary bill, right?
Yep.
Okay. But what doesn't count? Trainers, future first round picks, scouts, shooting coaches, training facilities. They have decided to basically look at the rules and say, okay, this is what we'd be penalized for spending on. This is what we're not penalized for spending on. Let's pour all of our limited resources as a small market team into everything we're not penalized on. So they're going to hire the best scouts, the best shooting coaches, the best development coaches, they're going to create the best facilities. They're going to create the best team atmosphere, the best team culture. They're going to rack up these future first round picks. And of course, Sam Presti is a freaking genius. I've been known about him for 20 plus years now. And he will look at the most cost effective asset, and every single time there's a team that's looking to make a big splash, again, immediate gratification. I want to make a big splash. I'm willing to give up 5 first-round picks for it. Great. You know, in a couple of years from now, we don't know what Casey Wallace is going to be. We don't know what Jalen Williams is going to be. But I guarantee you, if these guys keep developing those guys right, they're going to fetch like 4 or 5 first-round picks, and the cycle continues. They're a really smart team. They like every team, big market, small market, should study the OKC Thunder over the last 10 years, 15 years. They're great.